Good evening, everyone. Good evening for joining us on this PMI UAE chapter webinar series. I hope people are going to join us in the large numbers today because we have really got a big, huge registration numbers with us. And of course, looking forward to have a good interactions with all of you. If you people have already attended previous webinars, you must be knowing that the kind of pattern what we go through, and we have a new brand, new speaking host with us. Basically, we are going to start officially at 7:05, but I think I invite all of you and welcome all of you from wherever you're joining. Please put your name and where you're joining from in the chat so that we all can look and see that how diversified audience we have today in this wonderful session. Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. My voice is breaking. I just read about it. So let me just quickly have a check on my internet connection. Okay. I hope it would improve now. There is no problem at my end looking like, but yeah. Hello, Sajid. Thanks for confirming, guys. My voice is clear, Benil. Thanks a lot. Good evening, the people joining from UAE and might be from some other part of the countries as well. We might find the guys coming in together. From Saudi, Akram is there. Hidayat from Dubai, Kuwait, great. Noor, welcome guys, one cover. Okay, so somebody from Canada, Amir is there from Canada. Might be early in the morning, could be there. China, Petroleum, Abu Dhabi, Debjit. We have a very diversified audience so far in the past webinars as well, guys. So I'm looking forward to have a good session today as well. So we are going to start officially in 2 more minutes, but yeah, I think keep joining and keep updating the chats. We really love to hear from all of you. And then, of course, we are having our speaker as well, Melis, with us, and she is joining us from Istanbul, Turkey today. And of course, she is going to speak on a particular topic, which I'm going to introduce today to all of us. And then looking forward to have a great session with Melis. Hello, Fahad. So just 1 more minutes. We have reached 116 so far. Okay, good. So we have crossed 100 mark already in 3 minutes. That's really a good achievement, I would say. Our popularity and the audience is increasing day by day. So that's a really wonderful news for all of us from PMI UAE chapter. And we really want to see it grow more and more with a lot of knowledge sharing and the wonderful sessions, what we keep managing with the wonderful speakers so far. And we are going to end the year with a bang, of course. And then the new year planning, of course, we are doing it for the next webinar series, keeping up all the feedback what you people have given us during our face-to-face sessions. And also sometimes we get feedback from the chats as well to keep in that. I would encourage all of you to put your chats there in the chat sections. And later on the line, of course, Q&A section will be also available for all of you to put the questions down the line. So let me officially begin, guys. So thank you so much for joining me up. Good morning, good evening, from where you're joining from here tonight. This is a PMI UAE chapter webinar series, as you must be knowing already. And of course, today I'm going to start with our what important for us, okay, is good health. So the groundwork for all happiness is good health, right? And he who has the good health has hope. And he who has the hope have everything. So today's topic of the webinar is exactly about it, that we as a project managers, how we are going to manage ourselves and our team's well-being like a professional, by our guest speaker, Melis. And then in this webinar, our speaker will guide us on the correlation between managers, we as a project managers, our well-beings, and our team's well-beings. She will also share the evidence-led examples and stats so that what works really well when it comes to our personal well-being and the people's well-being around us. So with that, my name is Anshul Chaube, and I'm your moderator tonight and the host of this webinar. And I'm joined by colleague at the back end, Amir, and the rest of the event team members who are really working hard to make this event happening to all of us. So I would like to explain some housekeeping notes for the people who are joining first time and what to expect from the webinar. This webinar would be around an hour and maximum more 15 minutes. Before we launch the topic, we really have a set agenda tonight. We go through a brief introduction of the chapter introduction, and then of course the core webinar presentation. We also will keep a short time so that we can answer the question and answers, where Malice and I will do our best to try to accommodate all your questions within the time frame. We encourage to all of you to post your thoughts on the chat, keep interacting with each other, and of course make the conversation much more engaging. With regard to your questions, please post them in the Q&A section. That really helps us to segregate the chats versus the questions. And also, I'm going to introduce with the chapter introduction in the form of a slideshow. So I'm going to share my screen quickly here so that I can bring the slideshow on for the chapter, and then we will take it from there. Okay, here you go. So this is the chapter. So project management is the institute, which all we know. And this chapter, UAE chapter, is the chapter of the PMI organization, which has been founded in 1969 by the group of project managers. Now, 50 years later, now it is one of the most important information source and resource for all the related activities in project management. We are also the largest professional association in the world and also offer a lot of trainings and accreditations to all the communities. Our chapter vision says that empower and influence individuals with the innovative project economy principles to turn ideas into the reality. And to make this vision happen, how do we work is with this mission to disrupt and create value-driven opportunities to our chapter members like you and the partners who become agile and innovative and productive in platform for the growth of project economy. So this is the brand new vision and mission statements. This is the chapter introduction in terms of some photographs, and this full chapter is run by 100% volunteers, more than 3,300 active members. We are proud to be in the top 5 chapters in the EMA region. And of course, we are focusing a lot on industries and trends and serving UAE aspiring community of project managers and PMI certified holders so that we can really introduce the capabilities and offerings with the importance of our profession. We all dependent on you to make this chapter activities as interactive and invigorating as possible. Our chapter board is led by Mr. Adil Sultan, who is the president, and rest of the board members who are helping Mr. President to lead the chapter activities. Membership benefits. So I would like to introduce the chapter benefits in 2023. So we have 4 important pillars with the chapter. We have networking, knowledge sharing pillar, and then career growth and events. This particular webinar series, what we are doing today, is the part of diversified webinar under the event section. Our collaboration partners. And of course, we all like to introduce you to the different marketing activities, what we have been doing to introduce our chapter in all social media channels. Please feel free to go to the pmiua.org to visit all upcoming events and all the chapter activities as well. So all the webinars mostly are getting introduced to the YouTube channel as well, so that you can go through them later if you've attended it already. And also all the content, what you're seeing today will be definitely the part of the recording as well. This chapter is going to give you the PDUs as well, just like with the previous webinars. Now, with this, I would definitely like to introduce our speaker here today. And I will not take much time, but definitely she requires worthwhile applaud because Melis is basically a serial entrepreneur. And then she has 3 groundbreaking enterprises with her. She is an avid reader and a persistent Harvard Business Review contributor, Stanford University contributor, and Tiny Habits coach. She's a mother of a small kid and a keynote speaker as well. She speaks about women's rights and then also promoting equal opportunities and well-being and better lifestyles. So in other words, creating a different world with everybody strives to reach their potential while caring for each other. Her brainchild Wellbees is an employee well-being platform, which is headquartered in US with several subsidiaries around the world, touching the life of more than 200K employees each day in 80 companies and over 100 countries. So this is the introduction about her. I would definitely like to say that Melis has been doing a great job so far, and then she has been wonderful in her adventures so far. And what we are bringing to the table today is Melis' experience and her expertise on the really evidence-based insights, what is going to help all of us together in this webinar. So here you go, Malice. I think I've spoken enough for you. Now it's chapter and the whole floor is for yours.
Yes, I'm already blushing. Thank you so much, Anshal. And like, I have to tell you one thing, like normally we do these things, right? After COVID, like we do online webinars and usually like to the most crowded ones, 5 people attend. And if it's overcrowded, it's like 10 people, right? Like I can't believe the crowd here tonight. Like it's hundreds of people literally, which is fantastic. And I think it's connected to the way how you project managed this webinar. Like literally so much thought, energy, and effort was into this webinar. I can't even tell you. Like I can't tell you how they project managed this whole webinar series. So like big kudos to you, Anchal, and the team.
My pleasure.
And for all of you like who put all of those hours behind to make this happen. I wished I'd known about like PMI before. Like I would have like, okay, Dalit from my team, please like don't listen to this. Like I think I would have hired every single person out of PMIs. Like this is crazy. So very happy to meet these individuals, very happy to meet this organization. And I hope I can contribute a little to you as well, because you've been such an inspiration over the past month now, going into this webinar. So what are we going to do today? We're going to have about like 40 minutes together. I'm going to leave some time for questions. Basically, this is like a webinar series number 1. We have another one called Tiny Habits. The first one is related to project managers' well-being or like managers' well-being. So this will tell you like in the next 40 minutes, I would love to give you the tools, first of all, to sell the idea of well-being inside an organization, because you need to sell, because it's called soft, right? It's a soft skill. It's something soft. Like when you talk about it, people just sometimes, some of them roll their eyes. I will give you the numbers that you can use to make sure that you're heard when you want to invest into well-being, when you want to lead teams with a well-being mindset. So that's the first thing that I'm achieving to do tonight, to give you those tools so that you can convince people. And number 2 is you mentioned, Anshal, that I'm the founder of an organization. This organization is called Wellbees, as you can see here. And Wellbees has 250,000 individuals on the platform every single day. So we have access to a lot of well-being data. We can see a lot of well-being data, not just personally, but in an aggregate way. So from that data, I will give you 5 specific tools for you to use in your projects that you can implement and have the best outcome when it comes to well-being. So with that, I would like to start, and let me warn you, it's going to be a very interactive session. So I would be extremely happy if you went along with me and shared your ideas. So let's start. All right. So let's start with how you're feeling today. If you can read the QR code and start telling us a little bit about how you're feeling today, that would be great. So you will be greeted when you do this, like please use your phone, and with the phone, just open the camera and read the QR code. You will be directed to Slido. In the chat, I believe the team is sharing with you the link as well in case it doesn't open. The reason why I want to know is going to be revealed in the next slides. But basically, we will be asking you, giving you 5 different faces, from a red one to a green one. And we will kindly like you to assess yourself. This is called emotional literacy. So by asking you how you're feeling, we're asking you to give a name to your emotions that you're currently experiencing. Why is this so important? Because of two things. Number 1, once you put a name, to your emotions, you're immediately like your brain immediately tells you that you're in control, right? You're not like this loose cannon anymore. You're like in charge of what you're feeling today, and you're ready to go. And with that very small, like this is very small, right? You're just asserting how you're feeling. And just by based off of that small little trick, you're able to control your emotions for the day. That's why, for example, there's a lot of research around journaling. When people do journaling, that's also associated with the control, right? Like when you do journaling, it improves your mood by up to 10%. And it has been proven over and over by different research papers. We see the same thing with our own data, which is why we ask you today. So we're walking the talk, you can say that. So we're starting by asking you how you feel today. Great. You've answered that question. Thank you so much. We have the answers. We will reveal them to you in the upcoming slides. Now, with that, I would love to ask you another thing. And for that, I would love you to use the chat or the Q&A function. So the question is, this is how you're feeling, but how you're feeling is just part of your well-being, right? Because your well-being can be affected by so many different things. So I would love to understand what well-being means to you today. Let's start with that. So what's well-being to you today? Can you share in chat? Being happy, amazing. Happy is an emotion, again. Being peaceful and happy. Peaceful is, again, an emotion, but peace itself, you can say it's related to spiritual well-being, all right? Well-being means seeing happiness around me. Okay, very interesting, because that also is associated with social well-being, right? Like you're seeing other people around you who are happy, you're also like distributing the health. This is social well-being, right? Somebody said health. Health is associated with physical well-being, right? Very good. I'm seeing mental health, absolutely. Being content, having positive vibes, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Maybe at work, you can say occupational well-being is a part of this. Feeling secure, absolutely. That also is attached to that is environmental well-being, right? Like when I go out to the street, do I feel secure or not, right? Wonderful. So, wow, I love the examples here. Being able to achieve your own objectives. Well-being can be physical, emotional, social, financial, environmental, and nutrition. Okay. And Anika would like to try one habit that's going to help her with all of these. Anika, the next webinar, I hope if we organize another one together with you, I'll be talking all about habits. Today is all about managers' well-being. So I'll be talking more about on the managerial side. So beautiful. So all of you mentioned various different things, and there are different theories out there. And so for example, some of you mentioned like accomplishment, feeling secure, etc. There are theories that encompass that. I like to show this wheel because I find it easier to understand and conceptualize. So this is the model that World Health Organization uses, WHO uses. And WHO used to say back in the 1970s that being well meant not being physically ill. So today, fast forward 50, 60 years, right? Now WHO says it's all about being holistically well. Being well means not being just okay through health wise, but also being okay in other areas of your life. So you mentioned various different versions of this. I didn't see any mention about the financial well-being side, but that's also included, and that's very interestingly 70% of talking about field workers. I'm talking about mostly like office workers. When it comes to office workers, financial well-being makes up 70% of the stress related to well-being. So that's very much connected, I would say. So these are all of the areas when it comes to well-being, right? Like this is when I say we're talking about holistic well-being, this is what we're talking about. And then like with that, let me lead you through a couple of my slides so we can get to managers' well-being. So you're dealing with projects in the middle of crises, right? Like one of them, like ever since COVID, right? Like we've seen various different crises start and end. Some of them still are ongoing. I'm talking about like the war, the energy crisis, now another war. There's AI upcoming, and I'm sure like you're dealing with a lot of stress when you're managing projects because you're on tight deadlines, and people are like, you're probably not the only thing on people's minds, right? Like they have other deadlines, they have other commitments at home. So how like do your teams in your projects navigate that? They don't really navigate it. They're really stressed. So when you compare people to when they were 15 years ago, they're feeling more stressed out than ever, unfortunately. This is why we're seeing employee well-being come out as a big industry. It's a $60 billion industry these days. I'll tell you why, and you can use these numbers when you're like in your teams, when you're trying to get the budget holders to make an investment about this, or just to convince those people who are not sold into this idea, for example. So after COVID, when you look at the MetLife's annual survey, and they do this every year, and they have year-on-year data for the past like 20 something years. And when you look at that data, it's very interesting, right? Like the priorities people have that people have changed, right? So number one is comp and ben, still compensation and benefits. Number two, flex working opportunities. This wasn't on people's minds before. This was like number 7 or 8. Number 3 is well-being. So, and again, that was like more on the 8th or the 9th line. Now, like when people come to work, just so you know, like these are the top 3 things that people are thinking on your teams when you're project managing a project, right? So these are the top 3 areas that they're thinking about. And as I mentioned to you, they're feeling more stressed than ever. And if you're working with Gen Z in your projects, just so you know, like this generation is really demanding when it comes to their well-being. We looked at our data, by the way, the data, like we have over 250,000 employees that are using Wellbees. And what we're seeing is, interestingly enough, Gen Z, it comes first when it comes to the usage of psychologists on the platform. So they're not shying away from taking support when you open it up to them. So if you're working a lot with Gen Z, you will see that like in your teams, they will be the ones that are demanding this. And this brings me back to why like this has become such a huge industry, especially if you're working with larger organizations. These organizations are making more and more into like well-being into must-have investment and not nice-to-have investment. Then again, like the money is poured into this, but why do we see people rolling their eyes when we're talking about well-being? It's because of the long tail practices that are out there, right? There are the eye yogas of the world, or this is a thing. This is real, by the way. This is Pilates with goats. It's a thing. You pay, I think, 200 pounds to attend something like this. And people do attend it. And I have nothing against that, by the way. Like, if it's good to you, you should be attending something like this. You know, if a breathing session is good for you, you should attend that. But when you're talking about managing the well-being at a workspace in a project management team, you're talking about something completely different. You're talking about productivity, you're talking about engagement, you're talking about being alive, being being in that project, like being in the moment when you're working on that project. So we're talking a lot about productivity and less about goats that are doing this with you. So today, I will be talking to you about small things that you can do in your teams to pretty much remedy these problems that you might be facing at the moment. So before I dive into that, I would love to give you an example. I'm not sure if we have any tennis lovers here. I'm a huge tennis lover. I used to be an ex-pro tennis player. I'm very competitive, very ambitious. And Djokovic is one of my heroes. So when he was ranked 680th, he was winning 49% of all of the points that he was playing out on that court. When he was third, he was winning 52% of his points. And when he was the champion, he was winning 53% of all of the points he was playing. Why is this even remotely interesting? Because, again, like today, I will tie this back in with the changes that we will do in the projects that we're leading. A small 1 to 3% change in the way that we're behaving, so in the way we're intervening with our teams on our projects, will define a mediocre team from a champions team. So we want to become champions team. If you're as ambitious as I am, I'm sure you want to create that champions team, a champions league like project management team. And for that, we will need well-being. And for that, I will give you the tools to do just that. So in order for me to tailor the examples that I will give you in the next couple of slides, I need to hear from you. So when you're managing your own teams, what are some of the well-being needs that you're seeing at the moment in these teams? Can you give me some examples, please? So again, the question is, when you're managing your projects, what are some of the well-being needs that you're seeing in your own teams? Okay, let's see. I love tennis too, me too. Get your examples, but Rafa is the best and Nadal is better than Djokovic. Okay, I get that. We can talk about that, Mohammed, later on. So team building activities, basic facilities, overtime perks, motivation training. My team often needs to vent, teamwork, a decent working environment, balance is needed, balance of work and life is needed. Interesting. Imad, these days, like when it comes to well-being researchers, they don't say work-life balance anymore. They talk about work-life integration because they do this because they believe if you talk about a balance between work and life, you essentially say that work is this one thing that I have to endure and I have to balance it with life, right? So people talk about work-life integration, where you have enough flexibility to blend work into your life so that you don't have to balance it, but you are working in an environment that you love. Your values are aligned with this organization. You're managing your workload in a way that allows you to perform your best. So alongside of this, there's this discussion around time management. People in the well-being space don't talk about time management anymore, not at all, zero. We talk about energy management. What do I mean with energy management? I'm a great morning person, but you might be a great midnight person, you know? So if you do the work-life integration, or if you give people enough flexibility to do just that, then people will work when it suits them best to their life so that they're able to perform their best, right? So there's a lot of talk in the well-being space around work-life integration. I just wanted to give that example. What else did you put in there? So true sense of connection and trust. Okay, Anika, it's one of the examples I will give that will really speak to that. Work-life balance, work-life balance, time management. Again, like work-life balance and time management. I would definitely give two examples about this in the upcoming slides, but one of them, remember the MetLife survey that I showed you? People are looking more and more, like right after their compensation, they're interested in the flexibility of the work. This is because work-life balance is not working anymore. Work-life integration is working. So when I'm talking about flexibility, I'm talking about giving people flexibility about let's give an example, right? We're all saying things like, oh, we have hybrid at work. But what does hybrid at work mean? Like we're talking about, for example, telling people Fridays you can work from home. That's not really the flexibility people are looking for. Harvard University just released a research last year that they have done with 5,000 people across across countries. I can email this to you as well separately. And what they found was people are not really interested in the hybrid options. They already take that as a given. They feel like this is like a hygiene factor. It needs to be there, you know, like a hybrid working option. They want to have the autonomy to exercise that hybrid. So instead of telling them Friday work from home, they want to hear one day work from home, but exercises any day you like. You want to do it 2 half days from home, that's fine as well. As long as you do the work-life integration, I'll give you the flexibility to exercise that idea that I've given to you. Anything else? Let's see. Collaboration, hard teamwork, inspiration, balance between work and personal time, downtime, super important. Collaborative. Okay, you've written a lot about collaboration. I will talk about I will talk a little bit about let me do that. Actually, this is so important. And so now let me dive into that, and then I will come back to what you've written, because what you're writing is gold. All right. So I will tie everything back in with these slides. So as a project manager, you have so much influence on people's well-being. Your influence on people's well-being is on par actually with their partners. Like, so you have so much influence on people's well-being as much as their husbands or wives, you know. This is a very high amount. Like, you're even surpassing their doctors or their therapists' influence on people. So how you're feeling today and how you handle well-being in your projects makes a huge difference. And unfortunately, we know that managers are not feeling great today. And I'll show you two different numbers. This one is taken from Deloitte, and you can find it online as well, or we can send this to you, send the link of this to you as well. What you're seeing here is the C-suite compared to their employees. And you're seeing that C-suites, the way like the C-suite is feeling is on par, just as bad as their teams, if not more, when it comes to being overwhelmed, feeling lonely, or feeling depressed. When we looked at our data, we looked at our, again, as I said, like on Wellbees, there are 250,000 employees, and we know who's a manager and who's not a manager. And when we looked at that data, this is what we have been seeing the past 3 years. When you look at the manager's well-being, that's the green line, you're seeing that year over year, managers are feeling worse than the teams that they're managing, and they're losing sleep. So the previous one was about their mood. This one is about their sleep. And you can see again, the green line is the line about managers' sleep, and the yellow line is about managers, non-managers' well-being. Again, managers have been losing sleep over the past 3 years, and this is like a chicken and egg problem. Like, if you're sleeping bad, then you won't feel well, and when you're not feeling well, you won't sleep well, and this becomes like a physical well-being dilemma that you can't get rid of. And there is a symbiotic relationship. We also looked at our data from different angles. We looked at different teams specifically, and we've seen that managers' well-being, if it's, let's say, at 4.00, we've seen that there's only 5% difference between that one person who feels 4 out of 5 and their teams can't feel anywhere beyond or below 4.02 or 3, because there's only 5% difference between how you're feeling as a manager and how your team is feeling. So there's a huge symbiotic relationship, and you matter. How you feel matters, and how much value you put on well-being. So how you handle your team's well-being in a project management setting really makes a huge difference. So again, these are numbers that you can use at work to maybe to motivate people to work on the same line with you when it comes to well-being. So let's see how you're feeling today. Then I will tie it back with your answers. So Dalit, do you mind showing from my team how this team today is feeling? Let's see. One of my teammates was going to show how you're feeling today. Oops, she fell down the line. You will have to wait till the end, I guess. So, but I'll give you an example from the answers you've given me on chat. So, various different ones of you have said collaboration, teamwork, right? So, we've done a huge survey in 5 different countries with PwC. We've analyzed thousands of people's data, and we've tried to understand one thing and one thing only. What's the one top correlator between a team that has very high well-being compared to the ones that have low well-being? Do you know what we've found? We found that its number one correlator with teams that have high well-being is psychological safety. And psychological, so like this brings me back to what you wrote in chat, right? Like you talked about teamwork, you talked about like collaboration. Psychological safety is the one thing that opens up the doors to collaboration and teamwork. And not only that, to your team's well-being. And this is the number one takeaway from this meeting could be this. So let's remember what psychological safety was and how you can jumpstart that in your teams. So we have seen, so the definition of psychological safety is as follows. Psychological safety is being able to tell what you think without fearing the consequences. So if you create that environment, either by being an example, you can be vulnerable, you can open up to people, you can say, like, if you tell, like, if you become that example to your team, they will also find that psychological safety to be able to share with you what they're thinking about work or about their real life, right? So, but if you're finding that difficult, here's one takeaway from this meeting. Again, as I said, we've seen over and over with our data, those teams that spend time together outside of work, so outside the scope of the project that you're managing, if you spend some time together with your team, the psychological safety scores shoot up. We don't know why exactly this is happening. Maybe spending some time outside work helps you empathize with the people. So we don't know the causality there. But we know that for a fact, taking from our data of 250,000 people, those teams that have the highest psychological safety scores are the ones that spend time together outside of work. And I know I can hear you saying, like, I'm working in a multinational company, I'm managing a project that spans 16 different continents, and we are a team of, I don't know, 100 people. How on earth are we supposed to do this, woman? And I hear you, and I have an answer to that as well. We've also looked at teams that are working remote first, like you are doing. If you're one of those teams, I'll give you the good news. You don't have to go to a company picnic, or you don't have to play, I don't know, PlayStation together in one room. You don't need to be physically together. We've seen, for example, we've looked at this in a remote first company, huge company with 10,000 employees, software developers only. We've looked at their data over and over for 3 years. What we have seen was very striking. The CEO of the company opened one step challenge every quarter, and people attended that. And whenever he did that, well-being spiked. It shot up, right? So it doesn't have to be time that you spend outside of work together in a physical space. It could be a team challenge. It could be sharing with each other some I don't know, your pet's photos or something something related to that. So you don't have to use a tool like Wellbees. It can be anything. It can be a Slack channel that you're sharing these photos on. You can create a challenge. For example, one of the most attended challenges that created the psychological safety, very high psychological safety scores, was the following. One of our clients has opened up a challenge called We Were Once Children. And under that challenge, so on Wellbees, you can create challenges, you can open, you can create photo challenges. So they created this photo challenge called We Were Once Upon a Time Kids. And everybody shared photos of their times when they were kids. And one of the participants said, my manager, blah, 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 was human once upon a time. And then they laughed about it, of course. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be an on-site training or on-site anything. It can be anything that brings you together on a meaningful way. So that's one takeaway, I guess, from this webinar that we're doing. So let's have a look in chat. So you're saying emotional support, appreciation, awards as motivation, rewards. Okay. So maybe I can mention to you the following. Being flexible, work energy management is an excellent idea. It's a bit challenging to have 2 half days working from home. Okay, so maybe some of you said talked about being inclusive, right? Like being covering everybody on the project as a whole. So that's part of it, because like when we've done that PwC survey, the number one indicator was psychological safety. Second indicator was being extremely inclusive, having an inclusive management style. I'm hearing you asking me, how is that even relevant to project management or like well-being? But interestingly enough, it is. So when you think of well-being, think of a scale, right? So there's one side that's filled with anxiety, there's stress, there's burnout, like there are all of these like negative emotions. You're trying to remedy that, right? Like you're trying to overcome all of those issues when you're dealing with well-being in a project management setting. But then, like, if let's say you've remedied all of that, you will be left with people who are neutral. You should be still like working on helping people thrive so that they can bring about what I showed with Djokovic, right? To bring about that champion in people so that they can bring about their best work. And of course, it's so important that we don't burn out people or help people to achieve their best. So think about well-being as the scale, right? Like you're trying to remedy problems, but at the same time, you're also helping people to achieve their best. So in like this way of thinking about psychology, about well-being, was brought about back in the 1970s by a professor called Martin Seligman. He talks about positive psychology. You can look him up. He has a great book called Thrive. And from his book, in his book, he talks about this. Like back in the days, back in 1970s, everybody was talking about alleviating those problems, and research projects were only around that. Nobody was talking about helping people thrive. So with him, positive psychology was born, and now we're talking about well-being, also from a light of positive well-being. You also commented a lot on like being positive, etc. So I wanted to mention this. But why is this also very interesting and like talks exactly into this like scale? We talked about psychological safety. Psychological safety helps people thrive. But the one thing that helps people not to burn out, not to have like all of those like negative emotions the most, is having an inclusive management style. So when we're talking about inclusive management in a project management setting in terms of well-being, we just need to know that people have different needs. So when we look at our data, for example, we work with over 250,000 individuals, as I said. When we look at their data, we see several different trends, right? Like we are seeing, for example, Gen Z loves psychologist support. We're seeing that those individuals that are between the ages of 30 to 40, most likely first-time managers or like managing teams these days, like that group does not have time for socializing or to take an appointment from an expert. Sometimes even they like to take care of their own well-being in their own time. This is the group that you will find that will mostly go jogging at like 6 a.m. in the morning so that they can manage their time well, or like would do like a 10 p.m. sleep meditation, right? Like they like to work on their well-being on their own. Like it will be very difficult to tell them to participate in a well-being activity or something, for example. Then people over 40 feel the need of socializing, interestingly enough. So those people would be mostly looking after challenges that like I mentioned, right? Like those little like connectivity exercises that will make them feel better through those social connections. That's what they're feeling the most, feel like they're lacking the most. When you look at it from a gender perspective, unfortunately, in this PwC work that we've done, we've seen over and over in each country, we've seen that the female subset has been lacking in well-being. So if you're going to start somewhere about asking how people are feeling today, maybe start with your female subset, because it looks like those who identify themselves as female are feeling it the worst when it comes to like juggling their own well-being. So having said that, one tip I would give here is the following. So you're trying to be inclusive, right? Like so that you can positively impact people's well-being, so that you can manage that scale, right? Like you don't want any negative emotions to pop up. How do you do that? How do you go about that? So we would advise, like, again, from our data, we've seen that checking in people on meetings. So I know you have a lot of meetings when it comes to managing a project. Checking in the beginning of those meetings might be a great idea to see where you can start with. There are a million different ways to do this, and there are a million different projects out there. Some project teams might be extremely introverted, so this might even be extremely rude to them or culturally very weird to them. Like I would personally talk about this first on one-on-ones to see if this is something that they want to do as a group. But doing this will help you and your team members understand about each other's well-being and manage it really well. Because well-being, fortunately and unfortunately, is very contagious. Again, I will cite Harvard research. This research, Harvard researchers looked at 20,000 different individuals for over 20 years. And what they've seen was the following. When it comes to your well-being, the 5 people that you're closest with affect up to 90% of how you're feeling today. So it's very much correlated, like how you're feeling today, how well you're feeling today is very much correlated with those people around you. So checking in with people to see, to understand where they are in their well-being journey, what they need, might be the greatest way before, like going after yoga with Pilates, Pilates with goat session, or like before you invest into any well-being tool, start by simply just checking in with people to see what kind of a need there is, I would say. So that's another note I would leave with you. I've already talked about this, but socializing really works online and offline, and other numbers also show this as well. So the yellow line you're seeing are those people who are socializing. The green line are the people who are not socializing. So you can do various different things on your projects, of course, getting people to know one another, maybe naming, their top books read, or like where they're coming from, their childhood experiences. I don't know, like you can be as creative as you want to be here. If you can't see them in person and socialize with them in person, you can do that online. And doing this really affects people's well-being, as the numbers show here. And then finally, before I wrap this up, some habits are actually more important than others. Some of you have written in chat, right? Like you've written that you have physical well-being activities that you're participating in, and that's exactly it. So interestingly, back in the 1980s again, people have done research in the UK, and they looked at a population. In this population, they divided the population into three: control group. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the most important thing. This is a group of people that were homeless, and this homeless group was divided into three groups: a homeless population, a control group, homeless population in the control group. Then a group was given occupational training. And then the third group started running. They started getting ready for a marathon. The researchers thought the team with the occupational trainings would get the most success. No, it wasn't the case. Those people who went after the marathons, those were the ones that were extremely successful at the end. So those people ended up having 92% of them ended up having a home over their heads. This is because some habits are more successful in shaping our well-being than others. And physical well-being is that. So it creates a domino effect. If you go running, for example, what other habits do you need to have? In order to be able to wake up early, you need to get to bed early. In order to get to bed early, you need to watch less TV. In order to watch less TV, you need to either talk with a loved one, right? You need to spend time with them, or you need to read a book or something, so that like you don't, like, when you stop watching TV earlier, you need to do something else, and you complement it with that. When you do running, what else happens? You take care of your nutrition as well. You drink more water, you eat healthier. So it brings this domino effect of changes in your life when you have physical well-being traits. So today I mentioned to you, I gave you like maybe 5 tools that you can use in your teams when it comes to managing that team's well-being. So I want to get back to the comments and see, first of all, if Dalit is here. Dalit, are you here? Can you show us how this team is feeling today? Thank you, Dalit. All right. So this is how you're feeling today, team. So you're 30% of you are feeling fantastic, phenomenal. 44% of you are feeling good, which is also fantastic. So those of you who've said they're not feeling optimal today, I would highly encourage you to, of course, like if you're doing extremely horrible, like go after professional support. I would say like there is, I've been in therapy for a million years now, and I'm very happy that I've been doing it and I'm still doing it. So if that's the case, knock on the door of a professional, I would say. But then you can use some of the tools that I've shown you here today to jumpstart that well-being feeling in your organizations. Because as you've seen, how you feel affects everything in your teams. So with that, I want to understand one thing before we leave and then open it up for questions. So we've talked about 5 different tips, right? So Dalit, I will show now. So if you can stop sharing, I'll take it over from here. So I've given you like 5 tools, right? These are the 5 tools that I talked about: psychological safety, inclusive management. I've told you a couple of tips there about like how to approach different genders, age groups. I also told you like where you can start about the inclusive management by doing check-ins, maybe doing them first on one-on-ones, then on a group basis. If possible, socialize with your teams to improve well-being in your project teams, and then start with physical health, if possible, when you are looking after your own well-being as a project manager. All right, so these were the tools. Tell me in chat, if possible, what can you do in your project teams today? Like after having seen all of these examples, these it doesn't have to be related to these, right? You can give your own other examples. Let's learn from each other. I'm sure you have great examples and better examples that I have given here, and I want to learn from you. What are some of the things that you do in your own teams today when managing their well-being? Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Oh my God, there are very nice comments there. Thank you. Um, wow, thank you. Um, thank you. All right. Paintball shooting with the team. Okay, very good, Saifuddin. I like that. It relates back to the socializing effect, or like spending time outside of work, right? What else? Empathy. What do you do for empathy, Shalini? Like, can you give an example so that like we can, learn from I also want to learn from you, by the way. Empowering them. How do you empower them, Raza? Like, can you give me an example? Uchena, you meant empathy. Oh, okay. Sunando just said, just listening in. Is there a specific way you listen in, Sunando? Like, do you send like Monday meetings for 20 minutes where you listen into them? Like, what is the what's the specific thing that you do? Visal, very straightforward. Having lunch together. Amazing. Don't eat alone, right? Okay. I already do the mood check in the beginning and at the end of the meeting. Fantastic. I would love to know how. Abdel Majid, how do you do that? If we know, we can learn from you, oh, okay. You give feedback. Hidayat gives feedback. How do you give feedback, for example? I would love to know. Understanding and empowering team members. How, Gulam? Okay, fantastic. For example, Robinson said, share mandatory knowledge sharing. So I think here's what Robinson does. You know, over time, he makes sure that he has knowledge sharing sessions and encourage team. So he becomes the one example to his teams to do physical activities. Understand each other. How, Debjit? How do you do that? Ooh, we have a sort of group therapy session before weekends. Interesting, Ahmad. Is there anybody who's navigating those sessions, like a coach or a psychologist, or do you do that on your own? And what do you discuss? You do boot camps, Leonard, interacting with them, care about each other's feelings, team lunch, often tea together. I like that, Zishan, because in my culture as well, having tea together means something more than just having something hot and warm together. Coming up with incentives, acknowledge the hard work. Yeah, sometimes just reward and recognition, Raza, right? Like just saying thank you really changes things in people's well-being. Knowing about their family status, children's education, parents' health, etc. Again, a hub connecting outside of work, doing social events. I like to try go for meetings over coffee, tea. Amazing. There's so many good examples here. Like, Anshal, I hope I can't, like, there are 50 other messages here. I can't read all of them right now because we have a minute left. And they're excellent examples. So if you don't mind downloading the chat and sending them to me as well. So from now on, I will also give you as an example in my upcoming webinars. So with that, I want to leave it, Anshal. So maybe next time around, if you've enjoyed this session, we can always do another session on tiny habits, which will help you jumpstart your new healthy habits towards managing your own well-being first, and then managing your team's well-being. Thank you so much, Anshal, for hosting me.
No, I think it was really a pleasure, Melis. And as you can see that 184 people were there on the webinar. I was just counting around that. And then the amount of energy the people are writing with in the chat really depicts that how engaging the session was. And then people are learning, as more importantly, the group learning is really exciting. And that's what I think this value of the wealth over there in the chat, I would say actually, because I myself learned quite a few different aspects about when people speak about that, how they're engaging, what is in their mind, and what's basically the feeling of wellness, what they look at. But I think wonderful. I think what we have done today is one of the really amazing webinar, Melis, and then the whole the particular the audience and that you yourself. I think we've really connected well over here. More importantly, and I have some questions listed up coming up to you to answer them up. I would start with something where Benil has asked about, especially in UAE, what happens that a lot of nationalities work together, as you know, right? So the challenge here in terms of well-being is, of course, is very relevant in the form of cultural issues. So he asked, give us some simple methods how to come with cultural issues, because these issues create wellness and the well-being stress overall. So any thoughts on and any advices on that?
Anshal, so Dubai is like my second home, and I'm not making that up. Like I traveled 22 times to the region in the past 12 months. So I've done a lot of trips to the region, and I think like about 50% of our clients are from the region, from the MENA region. And here's what we've heard. And I'll quote her for you. She said, this is one of the managers that we're working with. She said, my best friend is Netflix. So she lives in Dubai, and she's feeling very lonely. So lonely is a real thing in the region. When we're talking about Dubai, when we're talking about UAE, I think everything I spoke about actually spoke about this, right? So socializing, make sure that you include other people, even different nationalities. Socialize people with after work if possible. If not possible, do that online, because people do feel lonely. And we're seeing that there's another data set that I would love to show you right now, because this question is specifically related to well-being in the region. Let me show you some numbers to that. I wasn't prepared for this, but I have it ready somewhere, so I'm going to show it to you. So the thing is, the UAE has been doing great in terms of well-being over the past couple of years now. Like when you ask people how they're feeling, their overall well-being is actually better than the global average, right? And in all areas of well-being, not just physical, social, family, like all of the areas of well-being, people are saying that they're feeling better. But unfortunately, like when you look at the stress levels, this is where you can do the biggest difference, right? People like, yes, who doesn't feel always on? Everybody feels always on, always, right? This is not an UAE issue. This is a world issue. But when you look at the UAE, the number of people who are saying this is so different, right? From when you compare it to the UK, 88% of the people are saying that they're feeling always on, compared to the 60% of the people in the UK. So that's huge. And stress levels in the UAE, like 90%. So yes, like I think part of this reason is related to feeling lonely and not feeling connected at work. So when like we're seeing more and more companies that connect with through us, for example, and once they connect through us on our platform, we're seeing stress levels also drive down. I'm not saying use like our product. I'm just saying when you put, I think, an emphasis on social well-being, I think it affects other areas of well-being, especially the one we're seeing in the region. Because unfortunately, I don't think you can do away with the stress levels in the UAE, because essentially you're coming to a country where you're not a citizen and you're there with a work visa, right? So that feeling is always going to be there. You can't do away of that, but you can make it bearable together if you create that sense of belonging and togetherness. I think that's the key here.
That was really alarming stats actually, Malice, because that really shows and open up that how much stress levels are being prevailed around with that, and with that kind of message, I think the importance of well-being and the platforms which are promoting these well-being is really enormous. One important question is from Imad is that's really cool question to me actually, is that how do you shield yourself from your manager or your client's poor well-being? And then, of course, how do you shield your team from your poor mental well-being? Both the way around.
Okay. I think I'll give you a couple of examples again. And that's such a like well-placed question. Thank you. Is this Eman who's asking
Imad,
this?
Imad,
Imad.
Imad,
Okay.
yeah.
Imad, thank you so much for this question. I think number one is awareness. So if you're aware of like yourself, right? Like let's start with you. If you know that you're not feeling great today, if your well-being is lacking, you're feeling down, right? Just simply naming that, first of all, gives you control over your emotions, right? We talked about that in the beginning. Because your brain is like there's a part of your brain, there's like a identity part of your brain that controls everything that you do and you think about, and that part says, ooh, I'm now in charge because like I can name my emotion. And most of the people, unfortunately, when they're asked how are you, they can name 2 to 3 things. They can say I'm well, I'm not well, and I'm doing horrible. But if you increase your vocabulary, meaning like if you can add I'm angry, I'm feeling depressed, or like I'm feeling, I don't know, I don't want to put words in there, or like I don't want to trigger you, but like you see what I'm saying, right? Like if you can increase your vocabulary in terms of the way you express yourself, instead of just saying I'm okay or I'm not okay, it really gives your brain, you trick your brain into thinking you're in control, right? So that's one trick, I would say. The number two trick is telling people about how you're feeling, because how once you tell them how you're feeling, it's like then they know what you're radiating, like because we are like we talked about this, right? The Harvard University research that we have done. Unfortunately, well-being and non-well-being, so happiness and distress, they're both very, very contagious. And if you don't name this, but you're feeling like you're steaming off in the inside, right? You're not feeling great. You're bringing that into a project management space. If you don't name what you're feeling at the moment, it will be contagious. People will be taking on to themselves with possibly, they will take it probably personal as well, thinking like this is about them. So just naming it and normalizing it, just saying like, I'm not feeling great today, just so you know, it will take away, I think, it will solve 80%, I think, of your problems. On Thank you, Ahmad. And the problem is we talked about psychological safety, right? Like if you're dealing with a manager who is shielding that energy all the time, if that person brings about a psychological safe working environment with them, great. You can ask them, right? You can ask like, amount can go up to like X person and say like, why, like, I feel like there's something wrong with you today. What is wrong with you today? But if you don't have the psychological safety to ask that question, right? That's how do you deal with that? You can't deal with that. So that's why one of the reasons like well-being is so much affected by psychological safety. So you can't shield yourself off of that if you don't know the reason behind the aggressive behavior or the depressed behavior, etc. Right? So can you create that psychological safety without the consent of the other person? It's probably very difficult, but you can tell them about this webinar that you attended, that you've seen this. You can send them the report. You can ask them to kindly read it. You can tell them to talk to me, or you can tell them to watch the webinar. So maybe next time you ask them that question, they will be more open to talking to you.
Great. So thank you for that advice, Malice. It was really wonderful and it was appreciated by Imad himself there. So one last question I would like to put it through you before we close up for the day is that Hayamoth, I think, Hemenoth, sorry, pronouncing it a bit wrong. Oh, no problem. So Hayamanath is asking that because of the daily tasks we navigate through, there's a lot of consistency, work scheduling on and offs happens to us, and that pushes us to different boundaries and challenges. And sometimes it also contribute in the subconscious level to our time management aspect of not being productive, not being alert, not being aware, or not being present even, and that creates the ripple effect about wellness and the well-being on our mental health. And then it get translates to the point of into our behaviors, or subsequently in the form of our actions, or even sometimes in our emails. So any advice around waste time management, because that is the hidden factor under the iceberg that really contributes to the mental well-being as well, to a point.
Okay, if I will come back to the same point over and over, so it's going to be probably very boring for you. But so repeated meetings are, we know they're the number one threat to our health, to our productivity. Everybody knows that. There's so much research out there. Please go ahead and read it. Microsoft recently has done one, and they released it. So, like, if there's if when you're managing projects, if people are setting repeated unnecessary meetings, and they find that this is somehow necessary or important, you can send them this research, I would say. But again, it comes back to the psychological safety issue, right? Like, if you cannot raise this issue with them, if you think like this is not working, this is not good for our well-being, this is not good for our productivity, and if you can't name that worry without fearing the consequences, again, your well-being would be affected, right? So I think I will come back to psychological safety on this one.
Okay, great. I think that was good enough, Melis, to close that up. But I think what my key takeaway is that, of course, I have been into this situation up to a number of times and in fact, I was 1 month ago, there was a World Mental Health Day, actually. Okay, and that
in October.
I think the last in October in 10 somewhere there, exactly 1 month ago around there. So somewhere in that, what I did as a point of thing is that when I was reading about World Mental Health Day within the team, there's a two important aspect that I implemented with myself, try to experiment it, is that, of course, being into the project management space and program management space is always a lot of stress which we carry at the subconscious level because of the many things which come to us as a kind of project managers in the middle layer. Now, challenging the unreasonable project aims and objectives, that's number one. And then secondly, which I tried it to, is always to look after yourself. These two things I personally implemented on myself last month. Okay, and then when you're trying to say no to the challenging and unrealistic expectations from your up and from your side, it really releases out a lot of pressure on you and as well as from your team. Not being saying to be rude or not to know that we are saying no, but I think challenging the unrealistic expectation is one of the key areas for project managers to really apply and improve their well-being. And secondly, look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, you cannot look after your family. And if the family is not being looked after, it is going to come to your work life integration automatically. And that creates another effect on you without you being aware sometimes, because then you get into the cycle of what is going wrong with me in which place and what is impacting me in which place. So this really creates a kind of situation which project managers always go through, and they try to self-inspect themselves and to introspect themselves that what is the mistake they are doing. But I think good thoughts, and I think we are at the closer of the session, guys. I hope this session has given you the good nuggets to take you away and with your team. Apply those practices, 5 things, what she told about. And of course, read about this chats, and then YouTube. Again, you can go through the webinar if you missed something out. I think before we close, of course, I would like to thank to all of you attended this for your participation there, Melis, and your team, as well as the audience, what we have. I would like to give a particular thanks to our friends and marketing team, who has been really doing great job for posting all this information to our social media and our events page on the PMI UAE website as well. Of course, we would not say good night without saying a big thank to the chapter volunteers who has been helping with great hands with these successful webinars. Of course, includes people from membership, outreach, volunteering team, finance and governance. So today I'm going to close up this session and I'm going to invite you for the next webinar session, of course, next month now, together with my colleague behind the camera, Amir, and this events team. This is Anchal here wishing you a lovely evening ahead and God bless for your participation. Take care of you, Malice, and the rest of the team. Thank you. Cheers.